And now let's get reaction to the growing calls to abolish ICE from Kellyanne Conway. She's a counselor to President Trump. Kellyanne, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Laura.
This is wild. I have not seen anything like this, like we saw yesterday, where you had 675 people storm into the Hart Senate office building, wearing the tinfoil blankets, 500 getting arrested. We had sitting congresswomen and senators basically either getting arrested as well or sympathizing and agreeing. Abolish ICE. How concerned is the administration that this could actually galvanize the Democrats to turn out to vote in November?
Well, folks should be concerned if it actually ever came to pass, Laura, because the Immigration, Customs and Enforcement agency in this nation is there to enforce all immigration laws, not just deportation, as Senator Gillibrand incorrectly and accurately states. They are there to protect all these laws. And you know what ICE did just last year? They arrested 33,000 criminal aliens who committed all kinds of crimes that would be mind-numbing to your audience. They also seized almost 2,400 pounds of fentanyl, a synthetic
I think they're fine
opioid.
with that, Kellyanne. I think they're fine with that, but they want it to be reconceived
yeah, but no, they can't
and
have
taken
it both
out
ways,
of
and I'll tell you why.
DHS for more accountability. They say it's all
I'm not
gone
buying
rogue.
it. I'm not buying it. They want to pick and choose their acronyms. I disagree with that. There's no evidence that they believe that you can, quote, reimagine it. This is not it's a small world attraction at Disney World. You're not reimagining ICE. You're letting them do their jobs by keeping criminal aliens out and by enforcing all the immigration laws at our places of work and our places of education, at the welfare offices. I believe, Laura, that when you get past the talker, abolish ICE, which is becoming the leftward lurch for the Democratic Party, it seems, including this week, it borders on, if you get past that, do they really know what they're saying? To me, it spans the spectrum of from the ignorant to the irrational, if you listen to what they're actually saying. And they're trying to outflank each other on the left for 2020 as well. They should not be politicizing this at a time when these are very serious matters. Also, I think some of these folks who have a right to protest, I guess, unless they were arrested, some of them are calling really for anarchy over authority. So we should listen. They can't have it both ways. They can't pick and choose what they want to happen on the altar of a convenient political soundbite, and yet at the same time pretend that ICE did not detect and secure enough fentanyl last year, synthetic opioid, 50 times the potency of heroin, 100 times the potency of morphine. You know, they can't pretend that ICE didn't protect. That was enough to kill every American. Enough fentanyl last year they seized to kill every single American.
I want to move on to what happened yesterday. Obviously, horrific shooting in Annapolis. It's another heartbreaker. Guy with a vendetta against a newspaper filed a defamation claim. He seems completely like a total whack job. Stalked another woman. The president obviously has had a pretty difficult relationship with the press. Press has been wildly unfair to this administration on issue after issue. Yet the language the president has used against the press has led a lot of people in the press to say, look, this didn't cause what happened, but deranged people can get triggered by this type of constant drumbeat, that they're the enemy of the state, and et cetera, et cetera. They're the worst problem the country has. Is the president reconsidering some of that language in light of what happened yesterday?
Well, the president did one of the things he does best today, Laura. At his Tax Cut and Jobs Act 6-month anniversary, he paused at the very beginning to express sympathy and grief for the victims and their families and outrage over what had happened. And when you read a lot of the print coverage I've read today, it's very clear that people at the paper said, if this person, the shooter, ever comes in here, call 911. The former editor said that he had never met anybody so angry as a journalist in all of his life. So they knew that this guy was bad news for them. He had sued them unsuccessfully many years ago and went back yesterday to commit the ultimate act of violence. Violence should not be an occupational hazard. The removal of your life should not be an occupational hazard if you work in this administration, if you work in journalism, if you work anywhere. And that, I think, is what the president is saying. I'm somebody who's called for tamping down the rhetoric for a very long time, but those who actually call for it sometimes, if you listen carefully enough, if you look at their own social media feeds, they give license sometimes to something I think is a little bit hotter than covering the next story or reporting the, quote, facts. So, but this president, as he is wont to do, calls out violence and evil for what it is, including in what happened to those five innocent Americans yesterday.
Yeah, I get it. But whether it's someone's calling the president evil or Nazi or all these ridiculous rhetoric, horrible stuff, what they've called him. And then enemy of state. I just like. I don't really like any of it, and I think that it all can be cleaned up. You can have a tough relationship, aggressive relationship. That's fine. It should be tough and fair. But I just think all of it has gotten way out of line. But
I completely agree. I've been saying it for a very long time. And look, I think you and I are speaking as very tough women, but also mothers and people who just want folks to disagree respectfully, as our press secretary said last week.
Kellyanne, we have one more really important topic, which is, of course, what's going to happen in Helsinki, which is the meeting between the president and Vladimir Putin. I happen to think it's a great idea to engage with a major world power, regardless of our adversarial relationship with them at times. But listen to what happened today with Joy Reid and others. Let's watch.
Well, it's official. Donald Trump is finally getting one of the things that he seemed to want the most. Trump is scheduled to hold a summit meeting with Vladimir Putin.
The president today again cited Vladimir Putin's assurances that Russia definitely didn't intervene in our presidential election. Why don't we believe him when he says so? The White House also today confirmed a one-on-one summit between President Trump and Vladimir Putin to take place next month in Helsinki. Hold on to your Alaska.
Kellyanne, your reaction. They used to want us to talk to the Soviets back in the 70s and 80s. It was all to get along with the Soviets. Now we can never meet with Putin, apparently.
There has been a big switch there because Donald Trump's name is involved, of course. Laura, this is very simple. This is a president who just came off a historic summit with Kim in Singapore, trying to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula. This is somebody who's pulled us out of the Iran deal, so that their nuclear capability is. This is somebody is diminished. This is somebody who has already expelled Russian officials from this country and put sanctions on Russia when it's been necessary, and also pushed back on Vladimir Putin when he was propping up Assad, not once but twice, in gassing his people. But this is a president who, unlike our last president, is transparent about wanting to meet with President Putin. The last president whispered in a hot mic, hey, after the next election, I'll have some flexibility. So if there are national security concerns or the things these two countries can work on together, then the president's willing to hear that. But he does it transparently for all the world to see, and I think it's been another very successful week for this president between the 6th month anniversary of the tax cuts, the ability to fill another Supreme Court vacancy through the retirement of Justice Kennedy, the announcement of another major summit with another world leader. This is a president who's trying to bring peace and prosperity to all the world, beginning here at home, and he's succeeding.
Kellyanne Conway, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.